the lecture session on logistics and supply chain management, I will specifically discuss the supply chain network. Now, I have already discussed in the first lecture sessions, if you remember, the basic issues we must be dealing with while we go for the supply chain management. And the supply chain, when we go for supply chain management, so we need to define what is a supply chain. We have defined the supply chain, and in the entire supply chain, what you will find that there are many members in the supply chain, and there must be proper say the coordination, the proper integration among these supply chain members. So and what is important is being a member of the supply chain, a particular entity or a particular function must work considering its say its relationship with say the say the follower the functions, as well as the preceding say the functions. So related to a particular say the member in the supply chain, you have the preceding function, as well as you have the succeeding or subsequent functions. So your the function as a member depends on say to what extent you get the support from say the previous say the functions, as well as in the succeeding functions. So ultimately each member of the supply chain is working in a particular network, and depending on the type of the product is used, and the type of say the manufacturing systems, the types of the supplier base, the types of say the customers base that you have at a particular point in time, you work in a particular network. So so defining or say the documenting the supply chain network is a necessary condition. That means the starting point is that you must be able to say the represent or document your supply chain network. And while you represent this supply chain network, the kinds of relationships, kinds of when the dependencies you have, the kinds of say the independence you have, all these details you will come to know. And for each member of the network, what are the specific objectives you need to fulfill. So all these details you need to know. And what is important is that all these issues you need to quantify, and for while you try to model a supply chain network, you also must know that for whom, for which particular member you are modeling the problem, or you are formulating the problem. Now, supply chain management builds up on the flow of materials among the supply chain members, such as suppliers, producers, manufacturers, service providers, and customers. So there are the supply chain members. So who are they? Definitely the suppliers are there, producers are the manufacturers, then the service providers, and the customers. Okay. Now, supply chain management concept is based on a total approach involving the functions of three main subsystems. Okay, please just note down these three main subsystems. So what are those? First one is the supply subsystems. Second one is the manufacturing or the production subsystems, and the third one is the distribution and sales systems. Okay, subsystems plus obviously the supply systems may be intimately related with many other subsystems. So while we develop the network of say the supply systems, you should consider all those subsystems also. Similarly for the distribution and sales, and so that is very important. And similarly when you go for presenting your manufacturing and production, so what are the say the subsystems within the manufacturing or production system, so that also you must be able to identify. Now the manufacturing or production system is primarily driven by inbound logistics systems, and the drives outbound logistics systems. So they're driven by inbound logistics systems. That means your supply systems is basically controlling your activities, being the manufacturer or the producers, and but you as a production system drives the outbound logistics systems. So you have the two kinds of say the logistics systems. One is inbound logistics and the second one is the outbound logistics, and between these two logistics systems, you as a manufacturing system, you are working as a manufacturing system. So you are linked with the inbound logistics as well as the outbound logistics. Now an SC network typically represents the flow of materials from inbound to outbound logistics systems through manufacturing or factory system. So within each logistics systems there may be a number of farms. A typical SC network is shown in the following figure. Now let us talk about let us discuss the supply chain network. Now here what you mentioned that here is the manufacturer or the main company for which the supply chain network is to be known. Obviously you are linked with the inbound logistics systems, and you are also linked with the outbound logistics system. Now here what we have found that first, you as a manufacturer, you are linked with this set of say the suppliers. Okay, so this is your supplier base. So how many the suppliers you have right now? That is basically say capital N1 number of suppliers you are dealing with right now as a manufacturer. And obviously as we have pointed out during say the discussions on make or buy in decisions in purchasing management. So the number of suppliers with whom you are dealing with depends on how many the components say or the parts or the materials you are going to procure for as direct materials as well as for the indirect materials. So that decisions already you have taken. So at a particular point in time you are dealing with directly capital N1, say 100 suppliers or 200 suppliers you are dealing with. They are referred to as the tier 1 suppliers. Now this the item which a particular company, supplier company, okay, supplies to you a particular item. Now this particular item will itself be a product, and for making this product, okay, this the supplier company may be dependent on another supplier. Is it okay? So all these individual supplier companies, they have their own the supplier base. Okay, maybe your item is just one of its say the product mix, one of the items, one of the product in its product mix. So the company is also having say each company has its own say set of suppliers, and these companies are referred to as the tier 2 suppliers. And similarly, all these companies, they have own set of suppliers. So this way you proceed, like say then you move to tier 2 suppliers, tier 3 suppliers, and so on and so forth. So and all are interlinked. That means suppose the supply is disrupted from say from tier 1 supplier to you as the manufacturer. Now this could be, the reason could be that the disruption is due to non-availability of a particular material required for your item to be supplied by a particular this company, and non-availability from this company's supplier. So these are all interlinked in that. Similarly, availability or non-availability, so that depends on the kinds of say the interactions, the kinds of flows you have at a particular point in time between the suppliers at different tiers. Is it okay? And this is affecting your say the flow of materials within your manufacturing plant. Is it okay? So this way you present the network. So on one side, on the you are say you are affected by the performance of your inbound logistic systems, and on the other hand, when you produce a product, okay, that is the end item or the finished goods you produce, so you send it to your the customers directly. That means these are referred to as the tier 1 customers. Okay, and these are all customer companies. So for those the companies, you are becoming a supplier. So you as a supplier, you are sending the finished goods to your customer companies, and these customer companies, they are acting as a supplier to their to their customers or to their customers companies. So from tier 1 customers you move to tier 2 customers. That means why the customer needs your item, your end item, because this company, the customer company, is acting as a supplier to another company. So these the companies, obviously for all these customers of yours, they are in the tier 2 customers category with respect to your company or with respect to your manufacturing systems. So this way there may be the customers at different tiers. Is it okay? Like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and so on. So this is the entire network. And what might happen, like so your performance as far as flow of material is concerned, as far as the inventory so the level is concerned, maybe the dependent on the performance of all these suppliers at different the tiers, as well as the performance of say the customers at different tiers. So this is the entire network, and you might have realized by this time that say how do you say how complex the system is. So that's why you'll find the supply chain management deals with the several kinds of the complex problems. And here what is important is that while you go for analyzing a problem, that means from which perspective say you are looking at the problem, you are formulating the problem, that is very important. And the second one is that say for whom or for which member of the supply chain you are formulating the problem. So it's one, and so the unit of analysis determining the unit of analysis from for problem formulation and solution is an important issues. Now there are certain say the comments we can make on while you study the supply chain network. For effective control, including timely actions related to the activities of any member of the supply chain. You have identified who are the members of the supply chain, already you have identified them. Assurance of timely and accurate information related to flow of materials and its implication to performance and cost related parameters is very, very critical. That means what is important is that always you are trying to monitor the flow of materials within the systems, the different supply chain members, and for monitoring say the performance of your systems, you must have timely and accurate information. Otherwise it becomes difficult to monitor and control say the flow of materials. So obviously you get the information in such a way, or that type of information you must be able to get at different points in time, so that you are in a position to measure the performance of your supply chain and to measure say the cost involved, okay, for the activities you carry out. Is it okay? So what do you try to do? That means you try to identify the performance and cost related parameters. Is it okay? So later on when we discuss the supply chain performance measurement and evaluation systems, so we'll discuss it in detail. Okay. So what are those performance and cost related parameters you must look into? So what I am emphasizing at this point is that you create a supply chain, that is a physical systems, but for monitor the performance of these physical systems, you must have appropriate the support from your information system. The flow of information in reverse direction from customer to manufacturer. Is it okay? And from manufacturer to suppliers, indicative of status of availability of materials and resources is to be assured. So what we are trying to develop, not only a control systems, but also you are trying to develop an assurance system, and that is your objective. So the first when you create a control system, that means we assume that there could be deviations, but from the control systems, if you can move to the assurance systems, that means immediately we assume that there is the stability in the systems, and the entire performance is expected to be very, very robust. That means you have all sorts of say the preventive as well as the corrective measures inbuilt in the systems to take care of or to nullify the effect of say the external factors. Okay. So the assurance systems you have to develop. Performance of an SC network is significantly affected by this information system. Now, while studying this generalized supply chain network, that means what we have proposed, that is a generalized supply chain network. What is important is that any supply chain network must be the documented or must be presented with respect to a particular product or the service. So that is very, very important. So for a particular say product or the service, you need to document the supply chain network as of now. Now, the following characteristics, features or factors of SC network are worth mentioning. Okay. Now, first what you need to do, so you need to present your supply chain network, and then you need to assess or you need to know what are its characteristic features. Now, each of inbound and outbound logistics can be represented by interlinked groups of suppliers or customers. Okay. That means the overall systems we have placed. Now, within each systems there could be many subsystems. Now, these groups are referred to as tiers of suppliers or the customers. I have already explained in detail. Now, with respect to a manufacturer, working of logistics systems representing operations of network between first tier suppliers to the manufacturer. And this point is very important. The operations of network between first tier suppliers to the manufacturer and operations of network between manufacturer and first tier customers. So, primarily affects the working of the manufacturing systems. Now, when we refer to the working of the manufacturing systems, so the two aspects we always concentrate. One is definitely the production control, and the second aspect is the inventory control. Okay, so what we are saying that though the other factors, that means the factors between the different tiers of the suppliers as well as the different tiers of the customers may definitely affect, but our major concern is what are the factors mainly what are the factors prevailing between the manufacturer and the first tier suppliers, and the manufacturers and the first tier say the customers. So, these factors you must be able to identify, and in majority of the cases you will find say these factors between say first tier suppliers and the first tier customers, they are essentially or significantly affecting the performance of the manufacturing systems. Now, supply chain performance modeling and analysis requires an integrated approach. So, the integration part is very, very important. Like when we talk about the CIM, computer integrated manufacturing, we say there must be integration and there must be automation. Whereas when we deal with the CIB, computer integrated business, we always concentrate on the integration part. Now, automation part is not a necessary condition. It's very difficult to make the supply chain network an automated system. In the limited scale you can do, but entire supply chain for a specific product or a service becoming automated and 100% integrated, that is a really challenging task. So, what we are trying to do, that means an integrated approach you need to adopt, and in this integrated approach you need to consider the activities between the manufacturing and tier 1 suppliers and the manufacturers, and between the manufacturers and tier 1 customers as a first step. This you have to do initially. At subsequent steps, modeling and analysis may consider linking the tier 1 suppliers to tier 1 customers in respect of specific objectives of the manufacturer. So, you split your activities under different phases, first you concentrate on say the activities between the manufacturer and the tier 1 customers, and then you go to consider the activities between the manufacturer and the tier 1, the suppliers, and then you combine them, combine both. So this way you proceed, and so from so if a model say which is as a approximate model, slowly you build up the exact model. Okay, so a step-by-step approach is a must. While modeling the distribution requirements planning, DRP systems we have already discussed. So you refer to the DRP systems. The outbound logistics between the manufacturer and the tier 1 customers need to consider the flow of finished products or goods or end items through distribution centers like wholesalers and retailers. Is it okay? So that sort of the network you must create, particularly for both types of products, industrial product as well as the consumer products. A number of IT enabled services like e-commerce, EDI, barcoding and scanning, internet, decision support system, DSS, etc. should be used to facilitate the flow of information among the members of the supply chain concerned. Okay, so this is to be done. The storing methods at warehouses. Okay, the stores management already we have dealt with, and there could be different types of storing methods. That's also we have already discussed. The transportation methods used among the stores and the corresponding the storage and transportation cost and performance. That means transportation cost, transportation performance are the critical factors to be considered to develop an efficient and effective supply chain network for a company. That means between the two members or between two activities or two functions of the supply chain, there is a physical flow, and for maintaining this physical flow of materials, what you need different types of, say, the transportation system. And today what has happened that you can have the different alternatives or different alternate transportation systems, and so as you propose different alternate so the transportation systems, so the transportation cost is considered to be a variable. So you have to select the best possible say the transportation, say the methods, considering the transportation cost in a particular case. Assessment of a given supply chain network requires identification of the key work elements of the activities related to timely supply of materials in different forms at different control points across the supply chain. So you need to identify the control points. Identification and removal of non-value adding activities help in streamlining the flow of materials through the supply chain. That means what we are trying to do, to what extent you can apply the JIT based the JIT principles. A data-based performance modeling and analysis of a supply chain network related to a specific product following the logic of pool system, JIT based approach and DBR scheduling is a necessity. So you know what is a pool systems, you also know what is a JIT based approach in material and production control, and DBR scheduling as a part of say the theory of constants we have already discussed. So the DBR scheduling is a necessity. Then those are the, if you have already say you know what are these concepts, so try to use those concepts, adopt those concepts in the supply chain network. As there may be conflicting interests among supply chain members, it is imperative that an SC modeling analysis refers to the interest of a particular member of supply chain. So with this, I conclude my discussions on supply chain network, and the knowledge is a must. That means while you try to model your supply chain network, so the supply chain network in detail, what are the activities involved, what are the functions involved, their relationships, what are the decision variables, you must first be able to identify them. So this aspect is very, very important. So thank you.